The next story is really the classic of the bunch, and it's probably the story that if any of the general readers know of a Fitzgerald story in general, it's probably this one, because this is kind of a coming-of-age classic, a young adult classic. You were telling me this is one that you read in anthologies when you were in school.
Yeah, Bernice Bobs Her Hair was certainly part of school growing up. Honestly, though, in some ways I think it's like reading Austen, which those of you who've watched the show know I love. I got so much more out of the story this time than I think I possibly could have gotten out of it at 12.
It's definitely about sort of codes of etiquette and rituals of popularity and the way that you're expected to behave amongst your peers. Just in this case, it's the rituals of youth and
and group dynamics,
right.
and how to speak, and sort of the code of what does this mean, this gesture, this look, and working together to an ultimate end, or working against one another to sort of to keep you from getting where you want to go. You could easily plop this down in an office, I think. There's a lot of competition. There's support that is then jerked away, and there is revenge that felt really sweet.
It is a great revenge story. We might not remember this late in the day, but bobbed hair was very controversial in right around 1920, and in fact, when women started getting their hair bobbed in the war years, the state legislatures would actually come out with laws against it because they so feared the idea of what's next. Women want to have short hair like men. Oh my gosh, what's next? Next they'll
voting.
There you go.
Pants.
They will want pants and
jobs
and cigarettes. All sorts of freedoms that legally we could not dare to give them. So there is a sense of he's having fun with the fears of the elder generation in terms of what getting your hair bobbed in this day and age mean. But it also means something to the young people in this story, where it's a sign of how, it's almost like violation. You've taken a step too far for our little group to be
they were
bobbed
frightened.
hair. Yeah.
They were frightened. If she were to do this, we've all been playing along. We've all had the little back and forth dialogue. But if she actually goes ahead and does this, there's real fear and approbation and very vehement disapproval of her. And it just don't buck the system that much. You can flirt with it, but don't actually upend our conventions because we like the status quo.
Yeah. The idea of the story is you have a fish out of water who comes visit a more sophisticated city cousin, and the cousin, Marjorie, sort of tricks Bernice into getting her hair bobbed.
But she starts off helping her first.
Right.
Bernice isn't terribly popular, and she realizes this and doesn't understand why and wants to go home in a huff. But instead, her cousin gives her some tips. This was going back to that handbook of how to talk at a party, and gives her some tips of, well, if you tried this, if you didn't talk about the weather. So she helps her at first before she tricks her into bobbing her hair.
And the whole idea of popularity in the story. I mean, I think that for a lot of older folks, that's probably easy to dismiss. But again, it's something we do carry all into our adult years.
People do. Like I said, you could transplant this into an office. Who doesn't want to be liked? Most of us do. And it doesn't have to be a high school popularity group. We all want to be accepted and liked, and there's very much of that current running through all of the stories, that there is a larger group of people who are accepted. And what happens to those people who step outside those bounds and or push those bounds, and Bernice just breaks through them completely.
But by not being a rebel, just sort of blunderingly going along. The other thing I love about the story when you talk about the social customs is we always think of Fitzgerald as kind of a romantic, and this is really the story where you see him very keenly being a novelist or a story writer of manners. And this story's always reminded me of Henry James's Daisy Miller in a lot of ways, where you're really detailing this. On the one hand, you're sort of making fun of etiquette, but at the same time you're teaching the reader why these codes of interaction are important, because without them we just have chaos and, you know, people
right, bobbed
behaving.
hair. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Or tattoos, or shaved heads, or 2 earrings, or
We're just
you know, we're still going through the same things.
The unpleasantness of interaction, where people don't respect each other or don't respect each other's feelings.
But it also speaks somewhat to the superficiality of it all.
Yeah.
Where when you get into the heart of who Bernice is, she turns out to have a core of strength that nobody anticipated.
Right.
And that Fitzgerald describes in the slanting of her eyes. Twice.
The classic, and that slanting comes at the classic moment where she gets revenge on her cousin by...
Well, right before the hair gets bobbed.
Right.
She slants them.
That's true.
You know. And then she exacts her revenge, and she gets that look again.
Right. We don't want to spoil the story. We'll just say with a pair of scissors. How's that sound?
That's good.